When you look at school, it seems like it exists to prepare you for life. And in a way, it really does. It teaches you to read, write, do math, and follow rules. But there's one important thing that almost no one notices while they're in there. School doesn't teach you how to deal with money. From an early age, what it really does is prepare you to work for someone. You learn to obey schedules, complete tasks, wait for evaluations, and follow a path that's already defined. The ultimate goal always seems to be the same: study, get a job, and receive a salary. And when that salary arrives, your way of thinking is already molded. You start to see money as something that only comes from work, from daily effort. The idea of making money grow, of creating other sources of income, simply isn't part of the education. That's why the school system ends up forming people who think like employees, not financially conscious people. And this way of thinking limits the vision about money and wealth, even without you realizing it. At some point in life, you realize that poverty isn't just lack of money. It's also comparison. This becomes very clear when you live with people who have a different reality from yours. When you're a child, everything seems normal. The house you live in, the clothes you wear, the school you attend. You believe that's the standard. But when you start studying with children from wealthier families, something changes. You realize that completely different worlds exist living in the same place. You start to notice who arrives in a new car, who travels during vacations, who never seems worried about bills. And without realizing it, the question arises, why do some people have so much and others so little? It's not envy, it's curiosity. It's trying to understand how the world works. And that's when another even more important question is born. If money is so essential in life, why does school never talk about it? Why doesn't anyone explain how it works, where it comes from, or how it grows? This question, when it appears, usually goes unanswered. The subject is avoided, as if talking about money isn't part of education. At this moment, you begin to realize that poverty isn't absolute. It's relative, and that perhaps there's something important being left out of what they've taught you so far. After realizing that money makes a huge difference in people's lives, an inevitable question arises. Why doesn't anyone teach this in school? If money influences where you live, what you eat, how you live, and even the opportunities your children will have, why does this subject simply not exist in the classroom? When you start looking for this answer, you realize it's not a coincidence. School doesn't decide on its own what it teaches. There's a system behind it, rules, guidelines, approved content. And within this system, financial education is almost never a priority. The focus has always been to prepare people for the job market, to teach how to complete tasks, follow orders, respect schedules, and receive a salary at the end of the month. This keeps the system functioning. Employed people produce, pay taxes, consume, and keep the economy running. Teaching someone to be financially independent changes everything. It makes the person question, think differently, seek alternatives. And this type of mentality has never been encouraged within traditional education. That's why subjects like investments, assets, extra income, or business creation are left out. In the end, you realize that school doesn't prepare you to make important financial decisions. It prepares you to get a job. And if you don't learn about money outside of it, you end up repeating the same cycle that most people live. Work, receive, spend, and wait for the next salary. At some point, you hear someone say that buying a house is a great investment. It seems logical. Everyone repeats this. But when you start looking more carefully, you realize it's not always like that. The right question isn't whether something is expensive or cheap, beautiful or big. The right question is, does this put money in your pocket or take money out of your pocket? That's where the difference between assets and liabilities comes in. An asset is everything that generates money for you, even when you're not working. It can be a business, an investment, or anything that brings income. A liability, on the other hand, is everything that consumes your money, your time, and your energy. Many people buy a house believing they're getting richer. But in practice, money goes out every month: financing, taxes, maintenance, bills. If that house doesn't generate income, it doesn't put money in your pocket, it just consumes. Understanding this difference completely changes the way you make financial decisions. You stop looking only at the value of the asset and start analyzing the impact it has on your money over time. And it's exactly this type of reasoning that almost no one learns in school, but that makes all the difference in building wealth. In school, you learn a lot of theory. You learn formulas, concepts, definitions, but you almost never learn something essential: how to truly learn. The focus is usually to memorize for the test, pass the year, and move forward. After the test, most of the content is forgotten. When you enter adult life, you realize this becomes a problem. The world changes fast, money changes, opportunities change, and those who don't know how to learn on their own fall behind. True learning happens when you put knowledge into practice, when you test, make mistakes, adjust, and try again. And there's a simple way to accelerate this: teach what you just learned. When you explain something to another person, your mind organizes the content. You realize what you understood and what's still not clear. It's in this process that learning is consolidated. This type of skill is rarely stimulated in school, but it's fundamental for anyone who wants to grow financially. Because making money isn't about knowing everything, it's about learning faster than most and applying that knowledge in the real world. When you understand that learning isn't memorizing, something changes inside you. You realize that knowledge only has value when it becomes action. Reading a book about money doesn't change anything if you close the book and continue making exactly the same choices as always. That's why so many people spend years studying but continue with financial difficulties. They learned theory but never learned to test ideas, observe results, and adjust the path. Those who learn to learn start small. They learn a simple concept, apply it, observe what happens, and improve. This constant cycle is what builds skill. It's not speed, it's consistency. And the more you practice this, the more confident you become. The fear of making mistakes diminishes because you understand that making mistakes is part of the process. Each mistake becomes information, not failure. In the financial world, this makes all the difference. Those who learn to learn don't wait for the perfect situation. They learn by doing, improve over time, and grow, while most are still just accumulating theory. The way you talk about money reveals a lot about the way you think. Often, without realizing it, you close your own mind just by the words you use daily. When you say, "I can't afford this," the conversation ends there. Your mind understands that as a wall. There's no way out, no alternative, no possibility. It's as if the subject were closed before it even began. Now, when you replace that phrase with, "How can I afford this?" everything changes. The mind opens up. It starts looking for paths, ideas, solutions. Maybe you earn more, maybe you spend less, maybe you create a new source of income. The answer doesn't come right away, but the right question puts the brain in motion. This change in language seems simple, but it has a huge impact on the way you deal with money. Financially conscious people use questions. People stuck on a salary use limiting statements. Over time, this new way of speaking becomes a new way of thinking. And this new way of thinking changes your financial decisions, one choice at a time. Much of what you think about money didn't start with you. These ideas were being formed throughout childhood, at home, in simple conversations, casual comments, and everyday examples. Phrases like, "money is hard," "rich people aren't like us," or "that's not for us," are repeated without intention, but end up being recorded. You grow up hearing this and come to believe that making money is something distant, complicated, or even wrong. The problem is that these beliefs continue to accompany you into adult life. Even when you start earning more, something doesn't seem to fit. Money comes in but doesn't stay. Unexpected expenses arise, bad decisions, impulsive choices. It's not bad luck, it's mindset. That's why earning more money alone doesn't solve it. There are countless stories of people who earn a lot, like athletes or lottery winners, and shortly after are in the same situation as before. The amount of money changed, but the way of thinking remained the same. As long as these beliefs aren't questioned, you end up repeating patterns. You work more, try harder, but financially remain in the same place. When you identify these inherited ideas and start replacing them with new ones, your relationship with money changes profoundly. Wealth begins in the mind, and so does poverty. When you live with an employee mentality, the main focus is the salary. The most common question is, how much will I earn at the end of the month? Everything revolves around security, stability, and predictability. But when you start thinking like an entrepreneur, the question changes completely. Instead of thinking only about how much you'll receive, you start thinking about how many people you can help, how many problems you can solve, and how much value you can create. That's why, in the long run, those who are entrepreneurs tend to earn more. Not because they work more hours, but because they don't exchange time for money in the same way. Growth comes from scale. The same idea, the same product, or the same service can reach many people at the same time. While the employee thinks about protecting what they already have, the entrepreneur thinks about expanding. One is worried about maintaining the salary. The other is focused on building something that continues generating income in the future. This difference in mentality doesn't mean one is better than the other, but understanding this distinction is essential for anyone who wants to break free from dependence on a single monthly payment and build wealth over time. From an early age, you learn that making mistakes is something bad. In school, making mistakes means losing points, getting a low grade, repeating the year. Gradually, this creates a dangerous association. Error becomes synonymous with failure. The problem is that this logic doesn't work in the real world, especially when the subject is money. No financially successful person got there by always being right. The path is made of attempts, adjustments, and constant learning. When you avoid making mistakes, you also avoid trying. And when you avoid trying, you stay stuck with what you already know. This explains why so many people spend their entire lives in the same financial place. They choose known security instead of the possibility of growth. Failure, when properly interpreted, is a powerful tool. It shows what doesn't work, teaches limits, and points to new paths. Each mistake carries a lesson that no theory can replace. Those who understand this lose the fear of starting. They lose the fear of learning something new, of investing in an idea, of trying a different path. And this change in attitude creates opportunities that simply don't exist for those who live trying to avoid any mistake. School teaches you to seek correct answers. Financial life teaches you to ask the right questions, even at the risk of making mistakes along the way. There's something you use every day but rarely treat as you should: your time. Unlike money, time cannot be recovered. And even so, most people trade this precious asset without thinking twice. When you live only waiting for the salary, time becomes a bargaining chip. You sell hours of your life in exchange for money, and the problem isn't working. The problem is not realizing the cost of this. Each poorly used hour is an opportunity that doesn't come back. It's knowledge you didn't learn, a skill you could have developed, an idea that never came to fruition. Financially conscious people understand that time comes before money, not after. They use part of their time to learn something new, create something of their own, or build sources of income that don't depend on their constant presence. Meanwhile, most use all their time just to keep the month running. When you start seeing time as an asset, your decisions change. You become more selective about what you accept, where you get involved, and what you consume. And this silent change has a huge impact on your financial future. Wealth isn't just how much money you make. It's also how you use the time you have. Throughout your entire life, you hear that you need to seek security, a permanent job, a guaranteed salary, a predictable path. This seems logical. It gives a sense of control. But when you analyze it calmly, you realize that security and stability aren't the same thing. A salary may seem secure, but it depends on factors you don't control. Company decisions, economy, market, technology. Just one change, and what seems solid disappears. Still, many people cling to this idea out of fear of taking risks. True stability doesn't come from a single place. It comes from the ability to adapt, to learn new skills, create alternatives, and not depend on a single source of income. When you understand this, you start looking for options. You don't abandon everything at once, but you start building something parallel, an extra income, an investment, a personal project. Small steps that increase your autonomy. Those who confuse security with stability end up stuck. Those who understand the difference start to move. And this movement, done with awareness, completely changes the financial future. At the beginning of adult life, almost all the money you make comes from the same source, your direct work. You work, you receive. If you don't work, you don't receive. This is what we call active income. The problem isn't earning active income. The problem is depending only on it. While all your income requires your constant presence, your freedom is limited. Your choices are tied to the schedule, the boss, and the next payment. Over time, many people realize they work more, but don't advance. The effort increases, but the sense of progress doesn't follow. This happens because the growth of active income has a ceiling. Those who begin to understand money seek other forms of income. Not all at once, not in a hurry, but strategically. Something that continues generating returns even when you're not present all the time. This transition doesn't happen overnight. But it begins the moment you realize that financial freedom doesn't come from working more hours, but from decoupling time from money. Most people believe that wealth is made of big decisions, buying property, investing an inheritance, winning the lottery. But in practice, what defines your financial future isn't just these big actions. It's the small daily decisions. Each choice about how to spend, save, invest, or even learn something new has a cumulative impact. Choosing to pay an overdue debt, save $50 per week, watch an educational video, or give up an impulsive expense may seem insignificant in daily life. But over months and years, these small decisions add up and can create extraordinary results, or the opposite. The difference between those who remain in the same place financially and those who manage to prosper is exactly in this daily habit. It's not luck, it's not talent, it's consistency in making the right choices. And most importantly, you can start now without waiting for a perfect situation. When you understand that each decision matters, you start seeing money differently. Each real spent or invested stops being neutral and becomes a tool to create freedom, security, and opportunities. This is how small daily actions transform into wealth in the long term. Now that you've understood how the school system molds your mind, how the employee mentality limits your growth, and how small daily decisions can transform your financial life, it's time to look forward and act. The path isn't difficult, but it requires attention and consistency. Invest your time and money in ideas that can generate results. Create multiple sources of income, even if small at first. Reinvest profits in things that make your money work for you. Use resources strategically. Even debts can become tools when you understand how they work. The secret is simple. Apply knowledge in practice, learn from mistakes, and keep moving forward. Each step you take today builds your financial future. There's no magic formula, but there is discipline, the right mindset, and intelligent actions. And before finishing, I want to make you an invitation. If you liked this content and want to continue learning ways to transform your relationship with money, like the video and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss any of the next videos that will help you build wealth consciously and consistently. Now tell me, which of these insights changed your way of thinking about money the most? Leave it in the comments. I want to know your opinion.